This is the AM show across Ghana's 16 regions, live on X Spaces, live on YouTube, live on Facebook, and around the world on myjoyonline.com. The show is sponsored by Waylead Properties. And before we introduce our guest and begin reviewing the newspapers, I have a question for you. Are you thinking of a rewarding investment you can engage in? Then Waylead Company Limited is your preferred choice for such investment. Waylead Company Limited is a real estate company with several developments to its credit. You want to invest in our new development, Willow Lane, where elegance meets tranquility in the heart of Accra. We provide quality housing at affordable costs and also with flexible payment options. At Waylead Properties, we provide you 24-hour security, reliable power supply, and other social amenities to make your stay a memorable one. Give us a call now on these numbers: 0240 111 119 or 0504 499 999. You can also visit our website www.waylead.org for more information. Benjamin will tell you more.
Well, it is a fact that we know every year thousands of Ghana's brightest minds flock away. They seek better prospects abroad, leaving a gap in our internal workforce. But the question, how can Ghana inspire its talent to stay right here in Ghana? I'd invite you to join David Ofosu-Dorte, Professor Mary Setrana, and Her Excellency Dr. Amina Gurib Fakim, former President of Mauritius, at the 12th installment of the Ishmael Yamson and Associates Business Roundtable to discuss managing the talent exodus, leveraging private-public partnerships for growth. The date to note is the 7th of May, 2025. The venue is the Labadi Beach Hotel. The time is 9 a.m. If you'd like to register, text your name and organization to 0530 117 202 or shoot an email to info@ieyamson.com. We kickstart our news review now. Joining us in the studio, Dr. Ikwe Amwako. She's with the MPP's Communications Directorate. Doc, good morning.
Good morning, Ben.
You're looking good.
Thank you. You too. I mean, both of you, as always.
Your thoughts for us this morning?
Very brief. I'll just like to revisit the matter of our car waivers. In fact, today is a plea because the issue is deteriorating, getting out of hand.
How has it deteriorated?
You know, as I always say, the matter of the car waiver is not a matter of the government finding money to pay for the cars at the port. It's as simple a matter as issuing a duty waiver so that the cars are able to be cleared. So the fact that it's taking so long, it is very clear to all of us that it's just a matter of lack of political will to do it, or just like not an interest in the matter. What makes this so serious is that it is a matter of contracts between the GMA and the Ministry of Health. And issues of contracts should not be hinged on who is in power at that moment. It shouldn't be the case that this contract...
So it's a matter of contract between whom and whom?
Ghana Medical Association and then the Ministry of Health. It's in our conditions of service, which is renegotiated every 3 years. So until the existing conditions of service is renegotiated, it's expected that everything in there will be binding on the government. So we'll call on them again to have mercy on the young doctors who have several vehicles stuck at the port, accruing charges day in, day out, to listen to our pleas and help with that. As we are saying, now we've even hedged our expectations to the point that we are not even talking about future vehicles that we want to import. We just want the backlog that's at the port and has been at the port since January to be cleared so that at that point we can then decide what to do. So that's my very humble plea to the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Health this morning.
Have you had any official engagements?
Yes, GMA has been engaging with them since January. The last batch of clearance was given, I think, on 2nd January 2025. So it's not something that has not started. About 2 or 3 batches of the cars have been cleared prior to this period. And
right.
Speaking from the MPP, it's something that we were hoping to enshrine so that it will not be hinged on the whims of whoever is in government at that time. But unfortunately, we didn't get the nod. But as I say, this is something that as doctors have already negotiated for in our current conditions of service. So it's just a matter of the government honoring that contract.
Okay.
Just to stay a bit on there, because this has been, as far as I remember, from the early 2000s, we've gone here back and forth and all of that. In fact, just a few days ago, I don't know whether it was yesterday or a few days ago, I was actually pitching, for you guys. I always do that. from time to time. But the question I also have is, when you talk of lack of political will, less than 3 months into this administration's tenure, I've known that even in the past, sometimes it's gone on for protracted lengths of time. I agree with you. Maybe it should be formalized so that it's not at the whims and caprices of any administration. But at the same time, you say there's a lack of political will. You say there's a contract and it's expected that. Is it a binding situation where willy-nilly, no matter what, it must be done?
It's like, see, so most labor unions have conditions of service agreements with their employers. So in this case, GMA has a conditions of service agreement with the Ministry of Health, and that is a contract. So that's all we are seeking to do. And when I say a matter of political will, most of the processes that are involved in this, this duty waiver have already happened. The GMA itself has so many internal processes to make sure that this scheme is not abused. That takes some time. That has already been done. And it was forwarded to the Ministry.
That's already been done by
the GMA.
By the GMA.
By the GMA some time ago. And so this was forwarded to the Ministry of Health. The former Minister of Health, the Honorable Okuboy, was able to assent to some of them and forward it to the then Minister of Finance, who approved it. So this was about 2nd January. So this is not a matter of they just brought in the
So
card.
it was done in the transitional period, right before the new administration took over.
And these cards were imported even before the election. So it's been in the pipeline for a very long time. And as I said, if it was a matter of government committing funds, then we can understand the delay. But to me, it's almost as simple as just signing the waiver so we can take it to the port. That's what I mean by...
It's good that you say to you, but at the same point, I can also feel your pain as doctors because demurrage and other things will hit in. So at the port, the longer something stays,
and as I told
the more
most of them are
paying.
junior doctors. So it's a very delicate situation.
That's my last question, actually. Is this a cycle where you see how Article 71 office holders, per the current regime, if you take ex gratia today and you serve again, you will take, like some MPs have taken. I feel it should be restricted simply to fresh doctors. Now, you say that most of them are young doctors. My problem, if you've benefited once from the system, that's why some of us are pushing. If you're an Article 71 office holder and you benefit once,
you shouldn't.
That's it.
So
does that make some sense to you?
I mean, we can debate on that, but let me just bring some more clarity on our situation.
So clarify for me whether it's strictly for, let's say, doctors who are now...
You're only allowed every 5 years.
Every 5 years.
Every 5 years. And let's be honest, this is something that existed in the past under President Kufuor. We haven't had it for a while. It was just reinstated last year. So we haven't even had it for so long to be able to take advantage of it. But the convention now is every 5 years, and there's even a limit to the engine size. So the GMA puts in so many structures to make sure that it's not abused. And so when we go to the negotiation table, ahead of time, it doesn't become an issue of people are taking advantage of it. So they did put in a lot of stringent measures. If you are not in good standing, if you are not licensed, I mean, and these are all things that are already very strict to get your license. And I mean, even after school, you need to do about 2 years and go through a lot of other processes to get that license.
The reason I keep going back to that is that I remember in the past, it was being abused in so many ways.
Well, of course.
Which is why it was taken off. If you left it to me, I know some people have not benefited, but just like the law, it can't always be retrospective. It must be forward-looking.
Yeah.
I feel if we limited it to doctors who have now gone through the initial phases, housemanship and the rest, who obviously would face some struggles. I mean, a doctor who's been in the system for 5 years likely would have found his or her footing and acquired a car. I have friends, I know. But I'm saying that. But I'm saying that
you'll find a way to get
make
a
you don't
car.
talk your matter. Make you don't talk your matter for you.
It's not as simple.
Mommy knew if you are. But when it comes to these fresh ones, I know a lot of them, they struggle. Medical doctor, I agree. But I think if we limited it to them, there would be more impact. And we know that every fresh batch, so then it's constant. Every new batch, when you get to this level, you're done with your housemanship. We facilitate and you get... I think it would be better, but that's my thoughts.
My people will hate me for this, but I won't be opposed to limiting it to junior doctors. So that's for those in the first 5 years after housemanship. I mean, those are the more vulnerable in the group. And if you look at the list of people whose cars are stuck at the port, most of them are actually junior doctors. They are the ones that would want to go through the whole process because it's quite exhausting to be able to get this. So again, we hope that our pleas are heard this morning.
Okay. I like how you put it. It's a plea.
At this
not
point,
a demand.
At this point, it's a plea because, yeah.
Let's get into the newspapers. I have the Overseer. On the front page, we have these stories. No hearing, no explanation. Adwoa Safo slams NPP's handling of disciplinary summons. Chief Justice submits response to Mahama over removal petitions. Gold Board is the economic game changer Ghana needs, according to Dr. Kasia Latoforsen. Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, Ghana's first female vice president, is recovering well. Ignore malicious rumors, according to Ablakwa. And NDC Professional Forum founder, Uncle Sam P. Yali, is gone. Let me start from the story of Sarah Adwoa Safo because
I saw some EJMF tweet on. The news broke yesterday, but it wasn't official, so we had to. May his soul rest in peace.
May his soul rest in peace indeed. So yesterday, we heard that the disciplinary committee that was put together to hear Adwoa Safo's case cancelled this meeting. And she was the last person to hear about it, apparently, because some supporters, including herself, stormed the headquarters of the NPP yesterday, hoping that we would all bring some finality to this matter. But that didn't happen. And let me just read some of the things that she was saying. There was no committee sitting today, she explained. I had an engagement with a National Party officer, but there was no hearing. I'm left wondering why I was served a summons on a Sunday for a meeting that didn't take place. If there was a change of plans, why wasn't I personally informed? What do you know about this story? And from the NPP's Communications Directorate, what is the official stance?
The official stance, I'm sure, even yesterday on Joy News, you spoke to our Deputy General Secretary, Haruna Mohammed, and she explained the issue at length. To me, I find it very uncomfortable discussing internal party matters, and people would say transparency and whatnot, but in any serious organization that wants to endure over time, secrecy or keeping certain things to yourself is very important. We can look at it throughout history. People don't just wash their dirty linen in public. You can look at it as a family that has a common goal of developing Ghana in freedom. And when families have problems, you don't come and inform the public. So I'll then go to the matter at hand. Even yesterday, the day before yesterday, the letter to postpone the hearing was made public. I saw it even on social media. And as Haruna Mohammed said yesterday, the Honorable Adwoa Safo's PA and lawyer were served. I mean, the disciplinary committee of the NPP is a standing committee. It's not an ad hoc committee that was made up for just this matter. So they have their processes, and I mean, I'll be very surprised if she wasn't served. If by some...
Well, that's what she's saying, that she wasn't personally notified that this meeting had been postponed.
I'm saying, even I saw it on social media, sweetie. And so if there was some problem within her internal staff and this matter didn't reach her, it's quite unfortunate, and we hope that it will be resolved as soon as possible, but I would not want to dwell too much on it.
But just a quick thought. I listened to Haruna Mohammed as well yesterday talking about why she could not have a hearing after being invited and other party mechanisms in place, and that not everything had to stop for Adwoa Safo. But on the back of happenings and everything, with how she's expressed herself and wanting to, what signal does it send from the party? I mean, you're told to come on a certain day, you come and then nothing happens.
No, so Ben, let's clarify this. You are told to come on a certain day, other matters crop up, and you are informed that the hearing has been postponed. That's what happened, because I'm sure even...
At what point was she informed? That's also crucial, isn't it?
Said 2 people in her camp were served. I mean, if you are trying to reach somebody of that stature, the first person you usually try to reach is her PA. And in this case, since it's a disciplinary matter, her lawyer was also informed. So that's noticed. So if there's been some miscommunication there, as I already said, it's unfortunate. But yeah. This is not a matter to me. There's nothing wrong. These disciplinary committee hearings are postponed all the time.
Well, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. It's just the signaling sometimes. But I think listening to Haruna as well, he made mention of the fact that even being hauled before the disciplinary committee doesn't mean you're going to be punished per se.
These things,
you may be cautioned, you may be suspended, or whatever the situation may be.
They happen all the time. It will surprise you if I tell you some of the people who have been hauled before the disciplinary committee in the party. It happens all the time. And it's usually a big issue isn't made out of this. So,
are you saying she's overreacting?
Titi, you're trying to box me in here.
No. Oh, no. You see, you're saying that this happens all the time. It's not an issue that you blow out of proportion and all that.
Mean,
so is that what she's doing?
I will stand by the fact that this is not an issue that is usually made public, and there's no back and forth in the media when somebody is hauled before the disciplinary committee, and that's...
Except she was hauled before the disciplinary committee because of her utterances in the media.
Yes, so
specifically here at Joy News.
This becomes a very dicey situation. And again, just because of my stance of not divulging too much on party matters in the media, just as the directive said, I don't want to go into the details, but this happens all the time. Even at the regional levels, people are hauled. So there's, as I said, there's a standing committee. So they do meet to hear issues all the time. Just that this one has some media fanfare around it, which I find completely unfortunate.
You don't want to get into the details. You don't want to get hauled before the disciplinary committee.
And you are enjoying it.
Get the point.
It will go very quickly.
I promise. Yeah. So let's just leave it. I believe fear semi fear.
Okay. So National Identification Authority begins free Ghana card issuance in Greater Accra and urging public to report staff demanding fees, which means you're not supposed to pay anything. And the National Identification Authority has announced the commencement of the issuance of Ghana cards in the Greater Accra region starting Monday, that was yesterday, April 7th. And the exercise covers both the backlog of printed cards and new registrations at all NIA district offices. So take note, if you are yet to receive your card, please hop on it. According to the NIA, all Ghanaians who applied for card issuance, replacement or updates to their personal records since June 2023, but have not yet received their cards, can now collect them from their respective district offices where they registered. And there's a story, was trending yesterday. I listened to Monday on the Pulse, but I think there's something amiss. The Nigerian businessman who was arrested near Jubilee House for blocking apartments entrance with armed men. And let me just read a bit out.
I saw Oliver Bakavomo post on that. Apparently, per his story, that's the man who... Anyway, you go ahead. You remember the airport situation?
The COVID testing.
The COVID testing.
Same guy. So national security operatives in a joint operation with the police and military, led by Richard Jakpa and the Deputy Director of Operations at the Presidency, Mustafa Gbande, they've arrested a Nigerian businessman named Ben Peters at the Aurora apartment in Kanda near the Jubilee House. And reports suggest that it was the intervention of the president's brother played a pivotal role in actually bringing this man, some calmness to the matter.
Reining him in.
And Mustafa Gbande is saying that it's not really that's not really what happened, and that they had already arrested the man before he came onto the scene. But social media is buzzing, or was buzzing yesterday, that it was because of Mr. Mahama that they were able to apprehend this man. Yeah. For your reflections.
You would expect Mustafa to do some damage control, isn't it? So, I mean, I'm not surprised.
Do you know what happened?
No, but from what we've heard from people that were on the ground, you would expect him to do some damage control. So I see his response as nothing more than damage control. And on social media, I also saw that the man was promptly released. I don't know if you've been able to confirm that, together with I don't know if I can call them a private militia, or his personal bodyguards were also released. I don't know if you've been able to verify that. So this is a very...
You mean the man's personal, did you say militia? I think you should watch your words, because there are laws against...
Bodyguards. So
not bodyguards.
So what should I use? What's the
this
right...
This private militia thing, you remember what's it called? The bit after Ayawasu West Wogon, those, what are they called?
Hawks.
Those groups. How come I've just forgotten?
Vigilante groups.
Vigilante groups and all of that. Militia and these things, they are not
I don't know what
exactly
you can call a private armed group. So for me, I was just looking for the right English word to use.
Maybe private security. But
I didn't mean any
militia there.
But it's interesting to know that, well, these are all claims that have not been verified yet, that the man's private vehicles had police insignia on it. And I'm asking myself, how do we allow that, especially for a foreigner?
Exactly. I hope this...
I'm not saying something for you. I'm just giving you context for your reflection.
And interestingly, my sources tell me it didn't start now. That it's been like that for a long time since it's been in there. I'm like,
we cannot hide the fact that in this country, if you are able to accumulate a certain amount of wealth, it comes with some things. We cannot dispute that people are able to enjoy certain privileges under whoever is in power. The matter is, as a society, are we ready to do something about it? And how far do we allow these people to go? So I do hope that it's investigated and we can get to the bottom of it. The first thing is, I'm even confused. What was the issue? He was just blocking the apartment complex for what? See,
I mean, there's something in there that we all don't know yet.
Yeah.
Two things I want to run by you. On the back of this, another thing, it's interesting how if the claims are true sometimes, and some that I've seen, certain people who get diplomatic passports in this country, it's interesting. On what basis some of these people get diplomatic passports, I don't know. But I don't want to mention names because I can't go into this without not mentioning. I don't want to do that. But some of them you see and the person, I have a diploma, and I'm like, hey, I'm not denigrating anybody, but what's the protocol? How do people get diplomatic passports and all of it? Because the power of a diplomatic passport, what it can be used for. I mean, so
perhaps that's why Ablakwa was calling back all diplomatic passports that were issued within a certain time.
I think that happens every time there's a change in government. He even recalled us service passports of some of them, because I know people in the service who are their service passports recalled as well. So, I mean, again, it just, how much power is the state willing to relinquish to people that have achieve some success in the country?
It worries me because people can use that, engage in nefarious activity in the name of the country, but because they are seen to be wielders of. And I also feel it's to some extent politicized. So depending on who's in power, some people's favorites may have access to these. And it shouldn't be so. It should be restricted to certain core groups of people. I mean, people of if an Angelique Kidjo, who, for example, in Benin, they decided that, look at her pedigree, Grammy Awards and all of that. If they decide, fine. But on other levels, it becomes problematic. Just a quick one on the back of this, though. The COVID-19 testing saga at the airport and everything. There have been a lot of calls for oral to get on that. Looking at how shrouded in so many issues that was, would you agree that we should investigate that on the back of these happenings and throwing ourselves about in front of edifices?
So I always maintain that one of the upsides to a change in government is the chance and opportunity for accountability. So since we've been accused so many times of something nefarious happening with regards to that deal, why not? I'd have expected that by this time there would have been a report on all the accusations that were leveled against us by the NDC during the campaign by now already. So of course, are they not pursuing some of them? I mean, have you heard anything concrete about some of the allegations that were made? Some of the allegations that were made regarding lands that were sold, it came to vetting and apparently they were just asking questions. And now look at their approach to when a ranking member is seeking to do his job. They just go on a personal attack of character assassination. So yes, if that is an issue that they find that there's something fishy there and they want to investigate, I mean, more grease to their elbows.
Right. Let's usher in Hamza Suhuyini into the conversation. He is from the NDC communications team. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, and good morning to my colleague in the studio. And just for a point of correction, it's Hamza Suhuyini, not Alasa.
Right.
Your colleague in the studio is Dr. Ikia Amwako.
No, that's good.
So you know her name and you can address her directly.
Nice.
Okay. So we've been discussing Ajasafo's response to the no hearing, no explanation accusation from the party. Also on that Nigerian businessman who was apparently apprehended yesterday for blocking the Aurora apartment, and the intervention of Mr. Mahama, the president's brother, brought some calmness to the situation. Quick takes on these, and then we'll go to some other newspapers.
I think, first of all, when it comes to internal happenings within the New Patriotic Party, we are all clued with a democratic responsibility to be interested in what happens within that party, because it is a political party registered within the limits of our law, and so it is a public entity that must be scrutinized in terms of its internal own processes, its own internal processes. So on the basis of that, Doc, I'm simply trying to preempt possibly the conclusion that we should chop our house matter. So to lay the foundation why it is important for us to be allowed to comment when it comes to your internal happenings. I think...
But I don't think you've been barred from commenting on it, have you?
No, but I know the people I'm dealing with, so sometimes there's the need for you to set the stage and let them understand that in as much as it is their political party, we are all enjoined per our laws to be allowed to comment because it's a public entity.
And you see, Hamza, let's be fair here. If you came up today, you had some terrible issues within your party and you were jumping from media entity to media entity, and do you think your party members would be happy? Would they take it lying down? Would they not try to call you to order, rein you in some way, shape or form? Is that what you're saying?
I think that every party has its own internal mechanisms, and I made reference to that. But you see, your internal mechanisms should not be designed in such a way to stifle freedom of expression that is guaranteed under the 1992 Constitution. What the Honorable Adjoa Safo did was simply to open up on some of the happenings within the party as far as her personality is concerned. I see they should do as much as possible not to confuse what happens in Parliament to what happens in the NPP head office. First and foremost, remember that all these things started happening when she was a member of Parliament. Clearly, the Ghanaian people required some level of explanation from her as far as that conduct was concerned, because she was missing in Parliament at a point in time. There were inquiries as to her whereabouts, even at the time she was serving as a Minister of State in this country. So clearly, as taxpayers, it was within our legal right to demand to know where our Member of Parliament was at the time and also a Minister of State. So these questions were asked. It is only proper for her to find the opportune time to come to respond to those allegations or to those questions that were being asked. The fact that in answering those questions, possibly the NPP would have been dragged into the whole, discussion, largely because of her association with it. But we should resist the temptation to try to stifle freedom of expression. For me, that is my concern. I do not have any problem with the NPP activating their internal mechanisms, trying to engage her. But the way it was done was problematic because we had cases where the likes of Kennedy Ajapong went berserk on our media platforms, questioning even the integrity of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He was never invited before any disciplinary committee of the New Patriotic Party. Is it because the Honorable Adjoa Safo is a woman?
No, please.
So these are questions
let's not take it.
Let's
not take it.
Because why is it that they did not have the balls?
So
let's not.
Hamza,
please.
Wait.
Hamza. You can't mention. Please, you can't mention the B word on this show. Please take it back. I beg of you.
There's issues of sexism.
She didn't have the B word.
Okay, I'll take it out.
Take it back.
Maybe,
plus, you see, just to conclude on this matter, I've seen portions of both constitutions, NPP and DC, and you seem to have mechanisms of dealing with people in these matters. It's none too different from.
I am just saying that. That is why I'm not questioning it. But my only problem with it has to do with the fact that it appears that when it comes to certain individuals within the NPP, the laws are sharp. But when it comes to the likes of Kennedy Ajapong, it is shelved. And so for many of us, that is our concern.
Okay.
You see, we are at a stage where we are trying to encourage women from taking active roles in politics. And incidents like this, clearly, it's a disincentive, whichever way you look at it. Because I'm sure that if it had to do with the likes of Ken, they wouldn't have been invited.
So that angle of argument,
in the MPP, let me tell you that angle does not hold water. When you're doing something and your opponents are happy and gearing on, you know that there's a problem.
Dog, I hope so. You see, but you see...
Okay, we listen to you. Let's hear out.
Yeah, so there are internal party mechanisms that are going on with the Honorable Kennedy Ajapong, and there are internal party mechanisms that are going on with the Honorable Sarah Adjoa Safo. As I said, to a certain extent, the people of Ghana have an interest in what happens in the New Patriotic Party. And you were talking in particular about the statement she made. She hasn't even appeared before the committee for that case to be made as to whether she went too far, what exactly she said that brought the image of the party into disrepute. So let's wait for those things. But as to the matter of her being a woman and all of that, I think it's neither here nor there. You take it from me. As a woman in the MPP, it's not like that. If anything is actually disincentivizing us women in politics, it is the amount of trolls you have on Twitter that come after us and use unprintable words, even if we cough. That is more of a problem than our internal mechanisms. So, as I said earlier before you arrived, I don't want to delve too much into the internal.
All right, Doc, let's hang it there. Let's not.
I think that's it for the Ghanaian, the overseer. So let's go.
On my way here, I'll listen to her, please. That wouldn't be fair. On my way here, I'll listen to her. After my initial commentary, you decided to go back to her. It is only fair that I get the opportunity.
Briefly, do some 30 seconds.
You see, Doc, I think that you are missing the point here. We have not said that people, when they go outside the remits of political parties' own ethics, they should not be invited before your disciplinary committee. The NDC has its own internal disciplinary measures that we deploy. Please. We have our own internal disciplinary measures that we adopt. All what I'm saying is that we must be careful not to send the signal that when it comes to the application of those rules, it only applies to women.
All right, to a certain category.
Exactly. And for me, that is my worry.
Point made. And she disputed, she's debunked that. She says that's not the case.
When it comes to trolls. Unless, of course, she didn't monitor the commentary from MPP leading guys on social media that were being churned out against the Honorable Adjoa. They wouldn't have done that against Kenan.
To be fair, back then,
we all monitored it.
Back then, it was bad. So we get it.
I can understand her difficulty. She's here representing the New Patriotic Party. So I do not expect her to express her frustration, especially when it comes to the way Adjoa is being handled.
Please don't speak.
But you know that the story is moved from her utterances and how the party, responded with that call.
I do not want to go.
Cancelling the meeting without her knowing beforehand.
Exactly.
Right. So that, talking about how the rules are different for women and all that, I think, yes, it's an argument you can make. Right? So it's okay. Let's move on. Let's make progress. The New Republic, what stories are on the front page there?
COVID, right?
Yeah.
That is why you want me to respond.
No. So
give us the headlines.
The stories of the headlines
COVID fugitive nabbed in crowd in a grand showdown.
Oh, it's the same story about Ben Peters.
That's Peters. Again, you see, the reality is that these are still remnants of the last NPP administration that as a country we've had to deal with on a daily basis. Clearly, this is not the first time Peters is coming onto the news. We all know his relationship as far as the COVID-19 testing scandal is concerned. When we were in opposition, we had cause to raise it a number of times, even in Parliament, questioning why the government of Ghana decided to empower a Nigerian businessman in that manner, even under questionable circumstances. So these are...
If he had the capacity and maybe Ghanaian businessmen didn't?
I'm sure that there are many Ghanaian businessmen out there who have that capacity. We all know why he was selected, largely because of his own familiar relationship with even certain officials of the Nanado regime. And here I make direct reference to the secretary to the president then, and the likes of Gabi Ochudako. I am not mincing words. That is why he was selected. And I can assure you that as we speak today, government is still investigating a number of these.
I was just about to ask you, you call it a scandal. What are you doing about it?
Government is investigating.
In terms of oral, we've not heard too much.
Because the oral report has not yet been made public. And remember that when it was presented to the president, the Attorney General indicated that they would look at it and begin processes that are needed or required to ensure that it is operationalized. So until that is done, you cannot conclude that the government has gone to sleep, especially when it comes to issues of this nature. But you see, Ben, it raises issues of security and how exposed our country can be or is getting if we are not careful. And that is the reason why we had to fight all the way out for this change, to be able to reset the system. Because you see, if you have people like this, beginning to now run.
You're a man of law. Let me caution you that we haven't established any wrongdoing, so you might want to
No. I'm not going into this. I'm not going into the substance of the COVID-19 testing.
Right.
I'm going into the conduct at the set premises. You cannot tell me that what he did was legal. Absolutely illegal.
Do you know why he did what he did?
I don't need to know why he did this.
No, I'm just asking. We are just trying to find out. Because here, as we sit here, before you came in, we were discussing among ourselves that we don't know
why
so
he did what he did. But the point, no, I don't. But the issue is that there is, whatever the case would have been, he had no justification to have gone on that tangent. This country is a country of laws. If you are in a neighborhood and you have certain concerns, the security agencies are open to you, irrespective of the country you are coming from. You can walk into any security agency and lodge a complaint for them to take it up. You do not, on the basis of your own strength or power or authority, decide to block a public road, irrespective of how you feel. There are laws that must be obeyed in this country.
It tells you how powerful some people are.
Exactly, and that is why it is even worrying. You see, we must be careful in terms of the kind of people we choose to empower as a republic. This is something that worries me, because you see, this is not the first time we are having things like this, where you have compatriots or compatriots from other parts of Africa coming in, suddenly in a matter of a year or two, they take charge and they begin to run silo states. It is something we must work on. And for Nigeria, and this is a caution to the Nigerian embassy, I think that it is becoming one too many. Not long ago, I think 2-3 days ago, the High Court have had cause to sentence a young lady to imprisonment, I think for 8 years, largely because of issues of sexual trade,
I think it was 5 years.
Child trafficking
and other related matters. Then only for us, less than 48 hours to wake up to the Peters issue. It is important for the ambassador to begin to educate our brothers and sisters from Nigeria who are in this country.
But also, again, quickly, I'll add, we have to make tracks, but I'll also add that sometimes let's not be too quick, because, you see, when we go on this trajectory, we tend to stereotype. Oh, everything.
No, it's not about stereotyping. It's about
because there are a lot of Nigerians in the country
who are very
great things, very good things.
I agree, but that is why he can rely on them and use them as role models. You see, sometimes when you are made an ambassador, you are not expected to just come, occupy an office, and begin interacting with officialdom and neglecting the people on the ground. I want to see concrete steps by the Nigerian ambassador in the form of seminars, engaging his people so that they begin to appreciate how to live in this country. For all you know, many of them may not even know how to take advantage of our legal systems.
Hamza,
there's the need for them
just by way of moving the conversation, for I think we are done with your paper, but I'm curious, is there a reason why it's the foreign minister that's updating us on the health of the vice president? Not a press secretary, not anyone from her office, but the foreign minister. Is there a reason why he's the one updating?
Because he's the Minister for Foreign Affairs, and there's no way the vice president would have traveled out of this country without his involvement. Clearly, I am told that he was instrumental in terms of making the arrangements for the vice president to be flown out. So there's nothing out of the ordinary for the minister responsible for foreign affairs to be keeping us updated. And those of you who know their relationship, they have a very deep bond, especially when it comes to the Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa and Professor Nana Jane. They worked together first when Ablakwa was the Deputy Minister of Education to Prof. Nana, remember, under the first John Mahama administration. And since then, they have had a beautiful relationship. So Ablakwa is more or less like
vice president now.
She's vice president now, and Ablakwa is foreign affairs minister, and Ablakwa is entitled.
Hamza, though I feel it was a post by a minister, not, so to speak, an official communication. But in terms of official communications, shouldn't we have maybe the presidency officially leading the charge, telling us a bit? I'm not saying private medical records are private, but at least telling us what is happening in that respect. What would be wrong with that?
The health situation of the vice president.
I mean, the vice president was this, and that, and just give us some updates.
I think that is what has been provided. Unless, of course, maybe
social media from the foreign minister.
Which is why I'm saying that
social media is an important channel.
It shouldn't be.
That is why even Joy News is broadcasting live on social media. Are you not doing so?
Yes.
It's because it's an important source of communication. So if the Minister of State decides to use that channel to reach out to the Ghanaian people, I think that it is acceptable.
But you know,
unless of course we are now
Hamza,
trying to
we are not
criminalize the
like
attempt to use social
The last
media.
bit I will say is that while it carries weight when Ablakwa puts up a post, he's putting it out there in his personal capacity. That's why I don't see it to be. If it comes from Callistus Mahama, for example, officially from the seat of the presidency, I know, oh, okay. I'm not saying I'm doubting what Ablakwa is saying, but I'm saying he's not speaking. Do you get it? It's a post he has put up on social media. So I see it as a post by the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa. But if there's an official communication, it should come from a certain.
I don't see your.
certain quarter.
I don't see when there was a need for an official communication, that was done. I have just explained to you that the Honorable Ablakwa has a special bond, especially when it comes to the woman. Right. When the woman was being flown out, we had an official statement from the presidency informing the good people of this country that she was being flown out for medical.
So why couldn't the updates come through the exact same forum?
No, you see, that is the
official communication you just said.
That is the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa is the minister responsible for foreign affairs. He has a personal relationship with the woman. He has decided to let the Ghanaian people know the state of the vice president of our republic.
Okay.
What I'm simply telling you that he is not barred from doing so. He is not. Any of Pop's children can decide today to tell us that our vice president is doing well. But I am telling you that when it comes to the medical situation, it does not mean that the presidency will not be in a position to release further updates when it deems it necessary.
Let's go to the Economy Times now.
Oh, I thought you were giving it like a few minutes to just...
Please, feel free.
Have my bites on. You see, the hypocrisy of the NDC is just wonderful. How the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa and my dear brother Hamza here are now able to confidently and very comfortably defend public officials seeking healthcare outside. Let me just put it on record. Personally, I have nothing wrong with it. I don't see anything wrong with seeking healthcare and expanding your reach when you have a problem. But this is a group of people that have been on the neck of the previous administration for sending members outside the country for health, but at the drop of a pin, the current vice president has a medical issue and you fly her out of the country. Personally, as I'm saying, I don't have a problem with that. It's just the hypocrisy of the NDC.
How is that hypocritical?
No, there was a point at which the NDC in opposition had a press conference because Dr. Bawumia had been flown out of the country for... So how do you marry that with what's going on here? To me, all of this is below the belt. It's something that should not have even started. It's something that we should have removed from our politics, especially knowing the fact that even when they were in opposition, high-ranking members of the NDC were being flown out of the country for health. But because of politics, you come and have a press conference and blow this matter out of proportion to court public disaffection. Then you come into government, you don't even demonstrate any will to actually do as you say. But just in the first 3 months, you fly your vice president out of the country. Like, we are all children here. I mean, that's something that I hope moving forward in our politics, we all mature and drop some of these childish things.
I'm tempted to ask, Doc, even if the intent is to build capacity for our hospitals here so they don't have to fly out, in 3 months, you think that's enough time for them to have been able to do that?
Sweetie, it's not a matter of capacity. At that time, when they were asking that Dr. Bawumia be treated here, there were hospitals here. And let me just make
Because Dr. Bawumia was in office as the vice president, and they were putting pressure on them to focus on building the capacity of our hospitals here so that we don't... How many Ghanaians do you think can fly out to seek medical care when they need it?
Not if you look at the percentage.
So as opposition, when they were in opposition, it makes sense that they will try to hold government,
you can hold government feet to the fire without making these things, especially when it's going to be hung around your own neck. If you were not champagne socialist and you were the type that would actually receive treatment...
Champagne socialists.
Yes, that's what I call them, because they have a problem with everything, but they are the first to do it. If they didn't have a problem and they were at UGMC, no problem. And at that time, so many things were actually done to try and improve our health system. As I said, it takes some time, as you also said. But even if you're a president somewhere in Europe, some of the leaders in Europe go to other European countries to seek medical care. If you are doing certain procedures, the thing can be so specialized that maybe the only expert in the world is in Switzerland. Yes. So you will fly there. Yes. So it's not something that we should make a big deal about, especially
so the NDC
when...
should not have
especially when you,
even when you were in opposition,
you were doing the same thing.
Point.
The only issue I'll take with that is maybe how rampant it gets when people of a certain, I mean, for me, if a vice president, people in the trail from president, vice president, Speaker of Parliament, Chief Justice, all of these, the three arms of government, if these things happen, I approach it with a certain level of, because if you read even our Constitution and the protections given them, it makes sense. What I do not like, and there are two things. One, we should build our internal systems, because if we get to the point where you are, recently I had a relative at the UGMC. This is not the first time. This is about the third time. And I know the quality of healthcare they have there. Now, if the UGMC is not able to deal with certain things, and it could be specialized, I've heard about claims about what ails the vice president, which I will not talk about on air. These things are not necessary. But it means we must build more capacity in those areas internally, because I've always been that for the fact that if politicians are quick to do this, how about ordinary Ghanaians? Will I be flown out?
Yeah, so Ben, let me just...
Wait. That is point number one. And this whole penchant we seem to have about people being treated outside, like I said, it has to do with the numbers. If you have a number of people under an administration, and you know that it is from the public kitty, not from private resources, that is where it gets pretty complicated. So let's delineate, let's differentiate.
With the issue of UGMC, it's a very nice building, very nice thinking that goes into it. But if you are trying to build a quaternary facility, that is what we were trying to do with UGMC. It takes some time, especially in training of the staff. So one of the things the MPP did when we were in government was to make the postgraduate training of doctors free, to hasten that process. Because
to get specialized.
Exactly. So if you look at UGMC right now, most of the MOs they hired when the hospital was open are now doing their residency programs in 37, Ridge, Kolebu, and Co. It will take 3 to 5 years for them to complete, and then UGMC will now have like a full field of specialists. So these things take time. Number two,
but the UGMC was opened, was it not, in
2019? But it wasn't, the whole system of the hospital wasn't opened at the same time. It was opened slowly. So the first batch of MOs were allowed to go for their residency somewhere in 2021. And residencies take 3 years at the minimum. If you are trying to get to that level, or you're doing something that's more complicated, surgery or whatnot, it can take up to 5 to 6 years. So as you can see, even the first batch, I think maybe the highest they would have reached by now is membership if they were doing internal medicine. So I'm like, with those things, it would take a long time because medical training takes some time. Then number two, the way I like to look at it with these people traveling abroad is, you can imagine like Kenneth Oriata, when he was a private citizen, he must have been traveling abroad for his healthcare. So then when he comes into government, it then becomes a matter of he's already comfortable with the person there. Because especially where I work, by virtue of where I work, we see a lot of people whose primary healthcare providers are out of the country. These are people that used to travel to Spain to get very basic things done. And so we have tried to create a market to be able to...
Let me interject. It's for the sake of time. It's not a problem. These things happen. Like in the US, you'd realize that you can do some of these things. I think Marine Le Pen, you see why she's in trouble in France, partly because she was using certain resources that were not out of her kitty to make certain payments to, is it a bodyguard or all of that? We don't care. As for the president, the vice, and those I've mentioned in this order, the state has certain, categorization for them and dealing with their health and all of that. I'm saying that if a finance minister, for example, has a health issue, okay, to what extent will the state have to contribute? To what extent can we go? To what extent can that person decide, okay, if I have my own money, I will go to X facility and pay from my own, resources, not the public purse. That's where we are concerned. As for where you want to go, you can go to Mars if that's where you will get the best of healthcare. And if you are forking the money from your own pocket, if it's state coffers, that is what we.
I see where you are coming from with this, and so it's a conversation that we can have. But with most employers, they do provide healthcare. So looking at it from that angle, if you are the CEO of any proper company, they are covering your healthcare. So I'm sure that's the thinking that goes into it. But as a country, we can always have that conversation again. Yeah.
Doc, let's get into your paper.
Okay, so I have the Economy Times. BOG data projects strong economic growth in 2025. Exporters, analysts react to 10% US tariffs on Ghanaian exports amidst ambassadors' reassurance. Economic hopes economists hope Ghana gets IMF target waivers as it concludes fourth review. Why would we need waivers? I thought we were on track. So I think I would focus on the issue of the tariffs because it's been trending for a while. Ghanaian exporters have reacted to the 10% tariff adjustment by the United States against all imports from Ghana, highlighting a threat to Ghana-US bilateral trade relations. The Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana indicates that the imposition of the tariffs could adversely impact the business community, particularly those involved in export activities. So I think it's been in the news for some time, and so people get the gist of it. What I personally hope is that if you've been following the issues that have been going on, even from Trump's first term, this matter of the trade war and tariffs, I don't think we are the targets for it. I mean, yeah, you can... that could be debatable. I don't think we are the targets for it. He has said, I mean, President Trump has said that he's just looking to curtail unfair trade practices with the US, sorry. And it looks like his main target is probably China and all of that. So I do feel that in this situation, this is where we need the government to be up and doing, because it looks like a matter of negotiating. If there's any price difference or something with our exports, that looks to the US that we were disadvantaging them or shortchanging them over time. This is something we can quickly rectify so that we can even position ourselves to be a country of low tariffs so that we can attract some commercial activity into the country. Because I know personally, when the war in Israel and Gaza started, Turkey placed some tariffs on Israel. So some of the equipment we use in the clinic, for instance, are from Israel, and then that became a problem. So you see, if you're able to create an economy where you become a low-tariff destination, that could serve as a really nice attraction for people to come and invest in Ghana. So I would just call on the necessary authorities to handle this swiftly and, you know, spare us the photos till they have some results.
Well, just for context, I know that the story is actually here. Kojo Nkrumah lauded the minister's engagement with the ambassador because the foreign minister invited the ambassador for the United States over, and they were locked in a conversation yesterday about how we can move forward and how we can also save ourselves. Do you want to get a bite at this before Ben comes in?
Yes, I think it's important. I think, first of all, Doc, let me assure you that we are not champagne socialists and that we are a social democratic party, fully committed to that.
I thought you had forgotten about that.
No, I didn't get the opportunity to respond to that.
Okay.
And we are not changing our stance, I'm sorry to state. I always believe that we have to get to a situation in this country where, especially when it comes to our political operatives, I mean the president, the vice president, and the ministers, we must find ways of ensuring their treatment within the shores of this country for the safety of our country. Because when they are elected into office, they become national assets. They become an embodiment of our security. So you can imagine what happens if they are flown abroad for treatment, the possible underhand dealings that could go wrong, largely because of international relations and state interests, especially when it comes to Ghana. So anytime you have a political operative flown out of this country, undoubtedly, the national security of the country would be at stake. So that is why, even in opposition, we had issues with it. Unfortunately, we were left with an unforgivable mess over the last 8 years in terms of poor investments in our health infrastructure.
I would disagree with you.
Please, when you were, I had so many disagreements.
It's okay. Let's make progress.
Go ahead, Hamza.
I allowed you. You see, we've had to deal with a situation of poor infrastructure, poor investments in our health infrastructure, especially after His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama left office. If you notice, what informed our investments in the health sector when he was president was largely driven by that national security considerations, especially when it comes to our political appointments. That's why you had the UGMC hospital. That's why you have Reach Now, modernized, and the Smith Hospital Trust as well. It was done to ensure that we nip in the bud this obsession of having to take out of this country political operatives for treatment, because it is a serious national security concern. But unfortunately, we handed power to a group of people who seem to be interested over the last 8 years in enriching themselves. And so even in investment in the health facility suffered. If you need 3 years to have qualified personnel at UGMC, and the people of this country gave you 8 years in power, what did you do over the last 8 years? If you wanted to train even the best in the country to manage UGMC, you think that they wouldn't have done so in the last 8 years?
So
but if you look at the nature of what is happening today, remember that even Prof was first taken to UGMC. It was based on a referral. We did everything to avoid that situation because we are concerned about its implications on our security. And when we got to a stage that we could not avoid that, we quickly swung into action.
We've mentioned that is acceptable. We've also mentioned that.
Yeah, so clearly, even there, we have made sure that we have provided in place the needed security architecture to ensure that the state is protected, even while she's away and abroad. So there's a difference. I am not shying away from the admonition that we should not be engaged in taking our political operatives outside this country for medical treatment. It's something I condemned yesterday. It is something I will condemn today. But we are at this stage largely because of your conduct.
We must do a lot more. I remember I've been saying here that the Bank Hospital, for example, many years ago, I caught a lot of flack for that because I had to push the erstwhile administration on so many things. The stories are still there in terms of even getting it running. I was literally, so we need to do more. The other good thing is we've heard the president talk about completing projects in Agenda 111 is there. Hopefully, it can help in dealing with our health
as a political
situation.
party, we don't joke with it because we know it's tied to the security of our country. We don't. Same with the energy sector. And that is why you've heard the president seem to be interested in these two sectors lately.
We have to go in a bit, so I have to get into my paper.
Just briefly on the issue of what's the name? The tariff. Dog, and I must commend you, at least for wearing that nationalistic hat and appreciating that we are at a stage where states are engaged in pursuing their own interests. And we, as a republic, must also consider doing the same, especially based on where we stand. I've always argued that Ghana has an advantage when it comes to our relationship with the rest of the world. Because if you are coming into Africa, we become the gateway, whichever way you look at it. Because the first African country to have attained political independence. We have a thriving democracy. There are problems with it, but so far stable since 1992. Depending on how we position ourselves and how we market ourselves, we would be in a position to take advantage of our situation and possibly turn things around.
All right.
These things were expected with Trump presidency. And that is why the budget that was presented to Parliament was holistic in nature. Because most of these things were preempted. And I can assure you that
Trump spoke about some of these things.
The policy prescriptions of this government will undoubtedly ensure that we contain the negative effects of these policies.
Trump spoke about some of these things on the campaign trail, so I guess
exactly
it's biting us. Daily Graphic, government to stop issuing prospecting licenses to small-scale miners. Ghana risks losing EU timber export license. Parliament yet to ratify protocols. New rules set for Okada riders. On the back page, 40-bed facility to boost cancer care and treatment and intervention to empower prisoners, ex-convicts in northern Ghana unveiled. I'm going to box in a lot of issues so that we discuss them once and for all. This 40-bed bid, I remember Eki Asapong is director of Lifeline for Childhood Cancer Ghana. I've interacted with her once. She's doing amazing things in the fight. I think she lost a child and she became an advocate. So an organization dedicated to offering support to children with cancer, Lifeline for Childhood Cancer Ghana, is constructing a new 40-bed facility for the care and treatment of childhood cancer cases at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. And when completed by the end of this year, it is expected the facility will be a complete center with diagnostics, imaging, consulting rooms, playrooms, cafeterias, and isolation wards for the care and treatment of children cancers. They have also been pushing, together with others, for some of these to be listed on the National Health Insurance. And I think it's great work that they are doing there. Persons willing to operate a commercial motorcycle or tricycle, popularly known as Okada, can only do so if they belong to a recognized tricycle transport union or employed by a licensed commercial motorcycle company. The provision to prohibit operations without belonging to a recognized union and for riders to be at least 25 years of age is part of the new legislative instrument being drafted to amend the existing one, Road Traffic Regulations 2012. That's 2180. It goes on, and I think this is a positive step. I remember ahead of the 2020 elections, the promises John Mahama made to Okada riders. And I feel, look, we have to regulate. If you go to Rwanda and how they operate there, beautiful, we can do say. On the bit about government stopping prospecting licenses, my only issue there, Hamza, the Act points to this bit about, for foreigners, will deport them. The Act says when you are caught in some of these, you must be imprisoned and then deported. I don't know why because we've seen the Aisha Huang situation and others where people feel emboldened to come back into the country and engaging, activities inimical to us. Do you have a quick response for that? Just a quick one on that, quickly.
I think I share your frustration. My position has always been that if people come into the country and engage in acts that we consider criminal, they must be willing to face the full rigors of the law. But I can also appreciate the long hands of diplomacy, especially when it comes to interstate relations.
We're still doing diplomacy in the fight against Galamsey?
Clearly, that must not take precedence over our laws. If you go to the United States of America or the United Kingdom and engage in any criminal activity, be rest assured that their laws would be kicked in and you would face the full rigors of their system. And even jailed in some cases. And after serving your term, even if you were given a green card or citizenship status, you are likely to lose it and be deported back to your original country. So nothing prevents this country from adhering to its laws and ensuring compliance when it comes
for the sake of time. I'll come to you definitely. African mothers, newborns still dying needlessly. That's according to the UN, and yesterday was World Health Day, and we can do better with the numbers. EU prefers negotiation on US tariffs, but readies first retaliation. So they are preparing negotiations, but they are also preparing retaliation. But China has already hit back on the US tariffs. China hit back with a stiff import tax on US goods as countries and industries around the world weigh their responses to President Donald Trump's latest tariff hikes that are roiling global trade and world markets. And the final one on Ghana risking losing its EU timber export license. I just want to end there. Beginning June 15 this year, all timber products that will be exported from Ghana to the EU market must conform to the Forest Law Enforcement Governance and Trade License requirement. Although the move would make Ghana the first African country and the second in the world to meet the requirement, the opportunity risks fizzling out due to Parliament's failure to ratify the timber rights before rising last month. If the country fails to ratify the timber rights, all timber products leaving the country cannot enter the EU, the country's largest market for wood and wood products. That's it from my end. Quick responses. Hamza, I gave you a little bit in there on the first issue. So I'll give her about 1 minute and then you wrap as well.
Yeah, I'll just stick to the matters of health because by the time I'm done, the time will be done. See, it's very interesting that the political party that has done very little to motivate doctors in this country think they've made an investment in healthcare because they built one facility that was already in the plans of the University of Ghana to build. What about my grandmother in the Eastern region? If she's sick, she should die because she's far and not in Accra. Who is going to stay in that hospital and work? We made postgraduate training free, and so that is why UGMC is going to be brought up to standard. We were talking about the cancers. We added 4 childhood cancers to the NHIA, Burkitt's lymphoma, Wilms tumor, and all that. So when it comes to commitment to healthcare and understanding the system and knowing what to do with it, it's not even up for debate as to who has done better. So, I mean, that's all I have to say on the matter of health. UGMC is there. If it's the building that treats people, you could have sent Professor Jane Nana there. But it takes more than that, and we showed commitment to that. We're just talking about car waivers. You don't want to allow us to be able to buy cars, and you don't think we'll ride the USMLE and leave?
Point made. Final points, Hamza.
Clearly, if for 8 years you failed to do what you were expected to do in making UGMC functional, it is interesting how you concluded.
It's functional, Hamza.
Oh, but you just enumerated the challenges that are associated with
Hamza, this is your final take.
Well, thank you for that. In any case, you see, you can spend as much as you want. The good people of this country know that when it comes to investment in health infrastructure, the NDC stands tall. That is why when you go to places like the Upper West region, we have something substantial to point to You go to the northern region, we have something substantial to point to. You go to eastern region, we even have something there to point to. Unlike you.
Can you name them?
Unlike you. But you know that in the Upper West region, we have the Upper West Regional Hospital.
Which we added for phase 3.
Commissioned by
if we enter this, we won't finish.
You see, so clearly, if you were committed to the health of this country, if we have given you infrastructure, proceeded to employ people you came to fire, nothing stops you over the last 8 years from actually positioning this health infrastructure to work.
Hamza, this is where we're going to have to.
And that is the reason why I've always argued. Finally on this point, please, Ben. Finally. Ben, finally. You see, we are at a stage. I always tell the people of this country that the tax was simply not to vote the MPP out of office. But even as they are out of office, the tax is for us to keep them there. Because if there's anything they know how to do, is to deceive the good people of this country.
And that day is Hamza Suhuyini.
You can run a campaign with propaganda, but we will sit here.
We also had Dr. Ekwamako from the NPP Communications Directorate. You want to stay with us? Although we've ended the news review segment, sports comes up next on the AM show. We'll be right back.